Kia ora, I'm Charlotte Scott, and I'm really excited because today the classes that will be running at some Quilt Symposium 2024, which is in Cambridge in New Zealand, have been announced. I am a tutor and I am scheduled to run 5 days of classes. If they all fill, of course, which here's hoping they do. And I thought I'd run through some of them for you so that I can just let you in on some of the stuff that we'll be doing. So I'm running, the first 2 days is called Colour with Texture. And Colour with Texture is a beginner's, and then moving on to more stuff about learning how to hand dye fabrics. I've been doing that for many years. I actually had my first hand dyeing class at a Quilt Symposium years and years ago with Shirley Goodwin, who's a New Zealand hand dye expert. That was a long time ago, and I was hooked, and so I've been doing it ever since. So the first day we will learn about how, and we'll be using Procyon fibre reactive dyes. We'll learn about how they work, how to use them, dye safety, all that fun stuff. So we'll be producing our standard colours, and then we'll work through graduations from, dilutions. So, a blue, and then working out how to get a light blue and a dark blue and all those sorts of things, blackening dyes, working from one colour to another colour. I've actually, as I'm showing you some of my other quilts for some of my other classes, you'll see that the majority of them use my hand-dyed fabrics. But here's quite a nice one. This is one of my trees and triangles samples. And the green and purple triangles down the side were all hand dyed in like a colour wash graduation ombre, I suppose you could call it. So we'll be learning how to do some of that. And the reason I call it a colour with texture is because I don't try and make a solid flat colour with my hand dyes. That's one of the reasons I do hand dyes, because I can buy a beautiful flat solid colour, but the colours that I dye have a bit of sort of variation in texture to them, and they're unrepeatable. No one else has fabrics quite like mine. So this one, for example, which is one of my stenciling things, this background is a piece of fabric I hand dyed, and no one else is going to have quite that piece of fabric, because you can't buy it in a shop. My dear skeleton friend behind me, all those bones were ones that I hand dyed. So on the second day, we'll continue to learn more. I've got my little piece of paper here to remind me what I'm going to say. We'll do some thickened dye, which is really fun. We'll talk about mark making, and we'll carry on with some shibori type patterning and things like that. So lots of fun. So that's a 2-day class on the first 2 days. Now then the third day is a 1-day class, and it is called Imagery by Stencil. And that's a tool I have on my kitty that I like to use freezer paper stencils for. And here is one of my samples, again on hand dyed fabric, but those little geckos there are done with freezer paper, because to get their really sharp points, it's just pretty impossible with applique or freehand painting, and you can get beautiful crisp lines with stenciling. So for example, this one, that bird is a freezer paper stencil. Then I added some shading to it later, and those spiky thorn vines in the background are all freezer paper stenciled as well. The other cool thing that you can do with when you're using, because we use fabric paint, is that you can increase the translucency of your fabric paint, and so you can get a sort of a layering effect, or an effect of perspective. The other thing too is like, check out these tiny little birds on here. They're done with the freezer paper stencil, because I just couldn't get, you know, the crispiness of them any other way. That's also all my hand dyed fabrics. Okay, what else? Oh, here's some more examples of freezer paper stencils. So this guy is done, this was called Flamingo 4 Ways. It was for the Aotearoa Quilters pink colour challenge a while back. And so I did an organza flamingo. I did a, which one's which? This is a applique. This one's stenciled, and you see how I can get that lovely shading. And that one I believe is stenciled as well, and I coloured in his wings. So it's just a bit of fun. Then more birds. Again, the birds are stenciled, just because they're tiny. The tree is appliqued, but the birds are stenciled. So it's just a tool that I use depending on what look I get. Now, when I was talking about that translucent sort of look, okay, so the moon in the background, I actually stenciled it very lightly in gold paint. Now this leaf, this frond, is actually done with quite a translucent paint with freezer paper stencil. So you can see how it sits far back, and then these guys are appliqued on with like a solid colour. So they jump to the forward sort of aspect of the quilt. And I'll show you one more stenciling quilt because we can. So it's just a one-day class, and it's on the Friday. These guys, these birds are, oh gosh, all stenciled on. So, I'm having trouble. And some of those vines in the background are stenciled on as well. So, then there we go, wobble wobble. The last 2 days is a class called Trees and Triangles, and I'm so excited about this one. I did Trees and Triangles at the Great New Zealand Quilt Show in Rotorua, and it was a one-day class. And so Trees and Triangles, let me show you the first quilt I did with this. It's about playing with silk organza to get the layered look on the foliage, and then playing with colour to do the triangles. But I have upskilled the class so that it's a 2-day class. So the first day we will be painting our fabric so that we can do the triangle borders in a colour wash. And of course you can choose, this binding's not sewn down, that's why it's all a bit flappy and huckery. You can choose, you know, whether you go from analogous colours or contrasting colours, or, you know, whether you all just want to do all sorts of different greens. And then we'll be painting the silk organza as well. So you can see the poplars there are made of layered silk organza. So we'll be painting the silk organza to make the foliage, and then the second day we'll be putting it all together. So I'll show you this one as well. So you can see you get lots of different kind of shapes of trees, and depending how you cut and quilt your foliage is what you get the look of the tree. Like I think this one's sort of quite, I was intending it to be a rimu tree for New Zealand, but a lot of people told me it kind of looks like a eucalypt, some of the eucalypts in Australia as well. So again, layered foliage and the trunk, and then we've got the colour wash thing happening on the side, triangles. But what I want to show you with this one is that if you can see the trunk on this one, this is a piece of fabric that I cut the trunk out of. So that's the negative image. So the white, the light fabric is actually behind this fabric. And it is, so it's like a 2-for-1 deal. And again, I've layered up my silk organza for my foliage, and what do you know, I stenciled some birds on as well, so harking back to my stenciling class. So if you're interested in doing any of those classes with me, follow the direction. You have to be registered with the Symposium, which you can still do at the website, and just trying to see if I can find the website. But if you search for Quilt Symposium 2024 Cambridge, New Zealand, you should be able to find it. I think it's quiltsymposium.co.nz. Oh no, quiltsymposium.com. One of those will get you to there. You can register, and then you can go to classes, and you can follow all their instructions about picking your first choices and things like that. So hopefully that answers some questions, gives you some more detail of what I'll be teaching, and introduces you to me, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you there in October. Bye for now.